Alright, Shovel Knight. Finally beat this dang game. There was a woman that told you how many times you died, right? I wonder how many times I did fall into one of those dang pits. Where is she? Here she is. Third Eye knows my useless info. Great. The number of times you've fallen in battle is 206. I'm not very good at this game. Alright, let's jump right into the nitty-gritty with this one. Shovel Knight, the Shovel of Hope, does not pull any punches at all throughout this entire game. From the very first level, there are going to be difficult sections of platforming throughout its entirety, and they only get more difficult as you progress. But don't worry too much about this because there are going to be special unlockable pieces of equipment known as a relic that will help you along the way with traversing this insane terrain. Just make sure you don't die too many times before you get to the first village, this NPC area, because it's going to be a lot easier once you get there. Shovel Knight as a whole does not really have that much going on mechanics-wise, but there is one thing that I wanted to go over, and that is the fact that there are no life counters in this game. Just cold, hard cash. And when you die, you drop some of this money that you've picked up, this money that you've worked so hard to collect. And if you happen to make it back to where you died, you might be able to pick up some of this money that you dropped and carry on. This might sound similar to something like Dark Souls or something like that, except you don't drop all of your money. Just make sure that you don't die again, otherwise you end up back at square one. Keeping this in mind, currency's connection to both life and death are pretty clear. Death is 100% certain because you're going to be dropping your money. With life, it's a little bit less clear because you do need to spend it on something. But what? You're going to be spending it on health upgrades, magic power upgrades, so on your ability to power up your weapons, armor, on unlocking new relics. There are all kinds of ways you can increase your character's power by spending this money. But if you die, you lose this ability to power yourself up. Now, making sure that you don't die sounds a little bit simple and probably bearable for some people. However, the amount of money you drop is based on how much money you have. The more you have, the more you drop. This game is unforgiving like that, and I love it. Now comes the embarrassing part where I have to expose myself for a bit of user error. You see, when it comes to the Switch controls, there are two different ways you can input directional input, whether that's with the D-pad with the circular buttons or on the directional stick on the left Joy-Con. Oh my goodness, did it take me far too long to realize that the directional buttons were far superior than using the directional stick. For literally the first half of my playthrough of this game, if I was using the directional stick and it was just slightly at an angle when I was trying to go left or right and swing my shovel or make an attack or something, and it was assuming I was pressing up, I would accidentally use my relic or something that I had equipped, and then I would be somehow exposed to an attack and then get knocked into a pit or something, and all kinds of these accidental deaths and all kinds of garbage would happen. Now, don't get me wrong, I do love a good grind of a game, but when there is clearly something else going on that is causing an issue in a game, that is a different kind of frustration. If I'm just bad at a game, which clearly there are games I'm bad at, I'll admit it, but I definitely noticed that when I switched to the button controls, there was a massive uptick in my success rate. I still wasn't that great at the game. As I probably showed you guys at the beginning of this, my death count was immense. I still wasn't that good at this game, but it definitely helped. And honestly, I feel like I figured all that out at the perfect time because there are multiple late game stages where you need to kill certain enemies in a very specific way in order to grab onto a ladder or land on a ledge. And it's clear, crystal clear, that these level designs are incredibly well thought out, and it was amazing how much I had to stop and think for almost every single new screen. I adored every single level that I played in this game. Now, when we first start up this game, we get about 7 or so screens on background information. This information is on who Shovel Knight is, and okay, that's pretty cool. We gotta know who we're playing as. And we also learn about this group of individuals, this Order of No Quarter. Alright, cool. We learn about our main cast of villains. Nice. But we also specifically learn about this woman named the Enchantress. Their boss, so to speak. Now we're getting somewhere. Now we've got our main villain. We've got a pretty basic plot fleshed out, and that's all this game really needs. Now, the intended purpose of every main stage of this game is to set up a main boss fight at the end of each of these stages, where we encounter a member of the Order of No Quarter, a knight. Before and after each of those encounters, we have a little bit of a verbal back and forth with Shovel Knight and that boss. So we get a little information from them on both the Enchantress and our final destination, her hideout, the Tower of Fate. But as to be expected, the big plot twist or story arc, whatever you want to call it, comes at the very end when we fight the Enchantress at her home base and at the very end of the credit roll. So make sure that you guys stick around after you finish the game so you can get a little bit of an extra surprise. King Knight, Arctic Knight, Tinker Knight. With names like these, you would expect the bosses to be wildly different, and they absolutely are. Ranging from their personality to characteristic art style, they are completely different individuals. Not only do they show it, but so do the levels they reside in. This game shines where it has personality and interest with each of the boss fight stages, also known as the Order of No Quarter stages, because they have a theme and they stick to it very well. With that said, something I found personally kind of a letdown was the penultimate boss fight versus the Enchantress, where every single other boss fight in this game is an absolute knucklebuster that you need to focus on and really pay attention to what your opponent is doing. Hers really is just this counterintuitive, inverted Space Invaders version of what I thought the penultimate boss fight would have been. She employs 2 main tactics where the big flaw in this design, I think, comes down to pitfall. Not that there is a pitfall in the design, but the fact that there is an actual pitfall in the level. You will either fall to your death because she is destroying the platform that you are standing on, which makes this platforming required for the boss fight, even though every other boss fight was an actual boss fight, rather than you trying to platform during a boss fight, or it was you would fall to your death because you're trying to break through this platform so you could actually get to her to deal some damage. It seemed to try and subvert expectations of what you should do during the game, but it just seemed to fall flat for me. Alright, now let's break this down into pros and cons for anyone possibly considering to pick this up. First thing on the pros list is actually going to be the music. Despite dying so many times that the same track would be playing over and over, and I'm going to save you guys a lot of overs here real quick, that the same track would be playing for hours on end, I never really felt like I wanted to rip my hair out due to the same track playing. I only want to rip my hair out because I died so many times. The music was key for setting the mood in every single level and would actually do an incredible shift when I was actually preparing to go into the boss fight. The next big pro for me is actually the bonus encounters. When I was looking up this game, because I was considering it as my next review, a lot of people online were talking about the boss fights being so cool and how exciting they were. I also really liked the bonus levels that were basically a treasure hunt with a specific relic. That way you could get some practice and learn how to use this item more effectively, and even walk away with some pocket change. Not to mention there are some optional boss fights on the overworld map that really don't get brought up that often that were also a pleasant surprise. Pro number 3 is actually the art direction. Paying homage to classic arcade games with this 16-bit art style comes across as retro, but still really fresh no matter how long you have to sit and stare trying to get through the same series of jumps. And the shade is only being thrown at myself here, just saying. Now our fourth and final pro is overcoming the odds. This is not an easy game. I'm going to state that clearly. But once you do complete a section that's been giving you trouble for a while and you reach the next checkpoint or beat a boss that's been kicking you into the dirt, there is definitely an immediate rush of satisfaction for having gotten past that difficult part of this game. Con number 1 is getting kicked into the dirt. I say again, This is not an easy game. There are going to be plenty of times where you'll just want to grunt or sigh in frustration because of the silly ways that you end up dying. You might want to get impatient and you're going to end up messing up something that you've done right a couple of times and need to laugh at yourself. But you have to remember that this game is meant to be fun, so if you cannot handle difficult games, this might not be the one for you. I've decided to call the second and final con for this game life insurance because I admit that knowing this game is meant to be difficult is one thing, but dealing with the cash for death problem can be a huge pain, especially when you're trying to get the money for a new relic, a weapon upgrade, or a new suit of armor. However, there's an easy solution for this. If there's a level that you find relatively easy, just go back and grind through it a few times and pocket all the extra cash because each level is replayable. Now for some final stats, this game does have an average time to beat of 6.5 hours. It took me 11 hours to beat, just to kind of show you how much worse at this game I am than most people, but I still had an absolute blast playing it. If you are thinking about picking up Shovel Knight Shovel of Truth, you could pick up just this for $15 on the Nintendo Switch, or if you want to try and grab a big bundle of games, you can get Shovel Knight Treasure Trove for $40, which is what I did. And if you found this game interesting and want me to cover more Shovel Knight fun, I can actually go into the rest of what the Treasure Trove is. Just comment down below and I'll jump into more of the Shovel Knight fun on a later review. Now, let's talk about my total rating. This game has absolutely earned a 9 out of 10. But that is all for today's video. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me, and feel free to like this video, share it out, comment, subscribe, all of that fun stuff. And I hope that you are having a fantastic, amazing, wonderful day because you are fantastic, amazing, wonderful people. I love each and every single one of you. And I'll talk to you all again soon. See ya.